What's up, everyone? Happy Monday, and welcome to your October 5th, 2020 Monday Night Raw review here on night 2 from the new crib. My second night of streaming here in the new house, moved a week ago. Thank you to everybody that joined me last night for our NXT TakeOver 31 review, which was just a phenomenal show, and I think I'm still riding the high off of that, just like Naveed has just said in the chat. Tonight's Raw was largely putting me to sleep until near the end with the Ali stuff, but for the most part, not an earth-shattering episode by any means, but still plenty to talk about since I wasn't here last week, and we've got plenty to preview in terms of Hell in the Cell. A lot of that was set up tonight, including another big match, one of their main events, something that I called all the way back in August, that they are going to go ahead and go through with a third McIntyre and Orton match. So we've got lots of that to discuss. We'll talk about the Ali stuff and all the little news tidbits and things like that. And we'll hang out at the end and share maybe some memories of the late Brian Pillman, who passed away 23 years ago today. It's a date that always sticks out in my head, October 5th, because it was the first ever Hell in the Cell match with Shawn and Undertaker. Brian Pillman died the night before in the hotel room in Minnesota. And then I believe it was about 2 years later, Darren Drozdov suffered his very horrific injury on the same day. So in terms of wrestling history, October 5th really sticks out to me. So maybe we'll hang around at the end and discuss some of that. But we'll start with Raw, and I'll start with some hellos. First thing I want to do is send out a big happy birthday, a big 30th happy birthday to Stone Cold. Thank you, brother, for the $2. The big 3-0. That's a big one. That's a milestone, man. Happy birthday to you. I hope it's been a great one. Thanks for being here tonight. And what's up, George? Morris? I was about to say, you're going to give it a 0 out of 10, right? And yes, you are. Appreciate the $5. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? Hope the move went well. Raw 0 out of 10. Cobra Kai Season 3 coming January 8th. I can't wait. Big things will happen. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that last night. We did get the teaser trailer, another 40-second trailer, which is extremely exciting. And we finally got the release date for this nonsense that should have been out this year. And it's only been postponed till January 8th. I can live with that because I thought it was going to be April or May of 2021. So I'm happy that we're getting that early. Raw 0 out of 10. I don't know if I'm going to go that low on that one, but it certainly wasn't a show that nail-biting episode that kept me on the edge of my seat. I nearly dozed off once or twice, as a matter of fact, during the show, and I'm still not completely sure what even happened with Keith Lee and Braun Strowman. I just know they battled it to a double DQ or something. So you guys might have to fill in the blanks for me a little bit as we go on here. But we'll get into, I guess, the match-by-match type of thing here. Good to see in here as well, Brandon and JR, Real American. Corey and Jamie and Melissa, how wheezy. Welcome back. Thank you, man. JL, it feels good to be back. Thanks for that, because it was a week off of the streaming. I wasn't here last Monday night for Raw, and I wasn't here on Saturday for the podcast either. Just wasn't able to get it all together and ready to go. Plus, I was busy with working, so I figured the best thing to do was just to come up after TakeOver last night, which is what we did. And now I'm here, and hopefully we're back on to the normal routine and the normal schedule. I will plan to be here on Saturday for the podcast. And in the meantime, I'm working on a review, a classic retro review for Barry. It's going to be TNA Bound for Glory 2010. It's going to be hard-pressed for me to get that up on the 10th, but I'm going to try. That is coming, within the next week or so. So you got that and the podcast, and then, of course, next Monday night. So might be a 3-video week, likely will be a 2, and then next week will be a 3-video week. So trying to get back in the groove here, and more things will be happening in addition to that, and I'll let you guys know. So with that being said, let's roll into Raw, see what we can dig out of this episode here, because I wasn't looking forward to it based on the preview. We knew we were getting a tag team title match for the women. That was mildly interesting, even though nobody really expected Liv and Ruby to get it done. But all the other matches they announced, especially with the main event, was kind of, was just kind of like throwaway stuff. Mildly interested in the Kevin Owens and Bray Wyatt stuff based on what happened on Friday. But other than that, it was just it was kind of a strange episode, because we have the draft coming up, starts this Friday. But, they have a show here on Raw where you have Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman both on Raw. These are SmackDown guys. They're not playing up they're doing a horrible job of playing up the importance of a draft. I've maintained for at least the last 10 years, it seems like, that the drafts mean absolutely nothing. I don't care who's on what show. It never matters to me, and it never matters to them, because as soon as they make all these decisions and they place everybody where they want them, they move them again. I mean, AJ just got sent to SmackDown, and I think we can all we all have this feeling that he's going to be right back here on Raw. It feels like they're going to keep him and Heyman separated. You know, you guys jump from one brand to another, and then when they want to show up on the other brand, when they're not a wrestler on that brand, they just figure out a way to do it with the wild card crap or the brand to brand invitational or whatever, or silly little tagline they want to stick with that. I have no faith in the draft. I have no excitement ever for the draft, especially in recent years when they're just kind of like, at least try to make it fun like the old days, put the balls in the wheel and pick them out or something like that. But instead, they're just digitally showing you who's being drafted on the Tron instead of, you know, making it, you know, a little bit more entertaining for the viewer. So even though the draft is a 2-night ordeal starting Friday and finishing up 1 week from tonight, I don't even give a shit, like, at all. I could care less what they do here, and just seeing Wyatt and Strowman on Raw tonight proves this point that it means nothing. And I think SmackDown is shaping up to be a good show with Sasha getting the title shot and Bray and Owens having the match, and then you got the draft on top of that. They're certainly loading it up, but hell, you know, it's going to suck. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they do. You know, I've seen so many tweets today, too, like, oh, who do you want to see move brands? Who do you think would be better on the other brand? I'm like, they haven't even been on the brand they're on long enough to really establish anything there yet. You know, you guys have to help me. Is there anybody that's, like, just been on Raw for the past 5 years and nowhere else? No. You know, it's everybody's just moving back and forth on a weekly basis, so nothing is new, nothing is fresh, and these guys don't get a chance anymore like they did back in the day to really develop their brand, you know, the brand personalities, like back in the day on SmackDown, how you had Eddie and Edge and Mysterio and all those guys, and Benoit, that Heyman was really pushing behind. You don't get those teams anymore. You don't get those core groups of guys that are, you know, Raw through and through or SmackDown through and through. Now everybody's just everything, including NXT in a lot of cases. And I just don't think anything exciting is going to come out of the draft at all, except for maybe a couple of names coming out of NXT. And I talked about this last night. I fully expect Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano to be brought up. I feel like they're an act. I feel like they kind of have their Gargano deal, and doing some dinner with the Gargano segments on Mondays or Fridays, I can actually see that based on how they both went down pretty cleanly last night. And the women's division also getting another shot in the arm with Toni Storm and Ember Moon. What's really left for them to do there? So, you know, little things like that could be like slightly interesting, but overall, who cares about the draft? By the way, can I be heard? Because when I did a sound check earlier, my mic was messing up. All right, I think we're good. All right. Still working on the lighting. I got to work on that a little bit. It's getting a little bit better tonight than it was last night, but I got a couple of more ideas, and I got to order another big light, because the ones that I have now, unlike my last place, aren't supplying me with enough light. So, because it's a bigger, higher ceiling and all that stuff. So I'm going to be working on that as we go here, because I'm kind of checking myself out on the screen there. Let me knock out a couple of these other super chats, and then we'll start rolling through the results of Raw. Who was next? Barry, good to see you. Thanks for the 2 bold prediction. I think Jeff Hardy turns at Bound for Glory. He might. I've kind of been watching the build to that, and it just kind of makes you think that he might. Can't wait to see what happens. It's going to be interesting. Hey, Divine Ricks, welcome back. Appreciate the 5. Hey, Greg, congratulations on the new home, and welcome back. Thank you for that. Which Hell in the Cell match are you looking forward to? Orton versus Drew or Roman versus Jey Uso? That's something I didn't really get a chance to talk about because I wasn't up this weekend, but they're going to go with another match between Roman and Jey, and this time it's in a cell. I think for the story, I'm looking for Roman and Uso, but I think the match might be Orton and Drew. That might be a better, more like evenly contested match. I think with Roman and Jey, it's going to be a lot of what we saw at Clash of Champions, with Roman kind of like methodically just beating the shit out of him and insisting that he acknowledge him as the tribal chief, because he got all bent out of shape on Friday when he wouldn't do it. And you know, he went on to talk about how high the stakes were in the match, and it didn't seem like Roman was really talking about the title. He was talking about life. So I think the story there is very Karate Kid Part 2. It's very serious, you know, and I think Roman could completely annihilate poor Jey. But I think Orton and Drew might just have the more overall exciting match, maybe. I could be wrong on that. I think Roman and Jey are both quicker and faster and stuff, but I don't know. Something tells me that Orton and Drew will come through in that. I think it's going to be brutal and good, and maybe resemble like a Brock and Taker type of Hell in the Cell. Where Jey and Roman might resemble something that Shawn would be in or something. I don't know. But kind of looking forward to both. I'm guessing there's going to be a third as well, likely. I mean, we're getting that title match on Friday with Sasha and Bayley, but they have to be in the cell. And I mentioned last night that I think one of them will get drafted on Friday. I think they'll do the match. There'll either be a non-finish or something like that, setting up the Hell in the Cell. One of them will be drafted in the meantime. That way, when you go into the Hell in the Cell and you have your winner, they can separate. So if Sasha just puts Bayley down, like definitively just kicks her ass and beats her clean right in the middle in the Hell in the Cell, wins the title, and then Bayley's drafted to Raw, that's kind of what I think is going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see what they do this week. Stone Cold, thank you, man. Happy birthday again, and thanks for 5 more. Austin hitting Vince with the bedpan was also on October 5th in 98. No kidding. I know that was the time of year. I never knew that was October 5th. That's hysterical. Still one of the noise that it makes when it connects with Vince's skull pops me. Every time I could watch it over and over, I laugh every time. It's probably one of the most hilarious scenes they've ever done. Victor, appreciate the $2 and good to see you too. What do you think of the newest Retribution member? I'm not sure if he's just a member. I think he's pulling the strings. And I've been saying that. I've said ever since the beginning that I feel like T-Bar is Evil Uno. I feel he's the Evil Uno of the group, and there's going to be an Exalted One or somebody pulling the strings. I thought they would drag this out more, but maybe WWE realizes the ridiculousness of the Retribution angle and how terrible it is. So they said, you know what, fuck it, let's just put him out there now, reveal him as the leader. And he was one of the guys that we suspected that would be cool because we thought he might be the hacker. And when that was dropped out of nowhere, now they've done this Retribution nonsense, and maybe I've been saying all along that maybe there's a chance this all still ties in together somehow, but I feel like no. I feel like they've actually probably dropped the hacker, and then with Ali being revealed, I'm happy for him in terms of it's something for him to do. He's not just wandering around backstage with Apollo and Ricochet and who the fuck else, and or he's basically replaced Cedric and their little clique there, and now he's got this issue with the Hurt Business that's been ongoing with Apollo for the past 4.5 years, and that's just the last thing I think he needed. It wasn't he was almost better off not being on TV than doing that. So as far as him kind of turning here and then kind of directing Retribution into the ring to beat up the Hurt Business, I don't know if that was a double turn or not. I mean, the Hurt Business was coming off as pretty big assholes throughout the whole show. They had one match first, and then Ali's going in the ring to face MVP. Retribution comes out, and then they kind of stand together for a minute, and then Ali hops out and reveals himself to be the leader, and then they attack and beat the shit out of Hurt Business. So I liked all of that. I still think that Retribution is an angle that's so silly. Anybody attached to it, it's going to wind up damaging them. But who knows? Maybe it can be the opposite here. Maybe Ali can actually start turning the corner, much like Brody did with Dark Order. Because even when Brody was revealed as the Exalted One, I still wasn't sold on it. It took me forever. It took me till about 3 weeks ago till I was finally like, okay, now I like Brody Lee. Now he's made a believer out of me. Now he's one of the more entertaining characters on TV. So I'm not expecting Ali to come out next Monday night and the entire wrestling world to say, holy shit, he's over now. I think we have to give it a little bit of time and just see if he can help this stupid angle out or not. And I'm still not a huge fan of the Dark Order, but they did turn a corner. They went from a laughing stock to something that's kind of entertaining now. So I'm not giving up on him yet, but I still don't think it's I don't have very high hopes for Retribution. But at least it gives Ali something to do. He seems like somebody who cares about what he does. He seems like somebody that if he's given something to do, he'll put his heart and soul into it. So it's kind of weird to having like a small cruiserweight moonsault flippy guy be the leader of like an ass-kicking faction. So I already think that doesn't match there, but we might be able to see a different side of Ali's personality that we didn't know he had. I'm seeing sides of Sami Zayn in the past couple of years that I didn't think he had. And there's a few other examples of guys like that too. So I'm pulling hard for Ali. There's not a wrestling fan out there that doesn't love the guy. And he's virtually been doing nothing for the past year. I remember last year, it was 1 year ago yesterday that the first SmackDown on Fox happened. I was in LA for that. And I remember Ali worked on like the pre-show or something like that. He just worked a quick match, and he's literally done nothing since. Like he's just been existing for a year, and that's all. So something is better than nothing, I suppose, but I'm happy that they made it him. Why not? Can't get any worse, right? But we'll talk more about it when we get to that portion of Monday Night Raw. Dominique, thank you, man. Good to see you and appreciate the $10. Just wanted to show support to the Good Mike Work channel. Congrats on the move. I was listening to your 2000 SummerSlam review. I appreciate your reviews and your input on older pay-per-views and WWE shows. I want to do some more. SummerSlam 2000 was the last retro review I've done. I've got another one coming up here for Barry, a TNA pay-per-view. And then after that, I'm going to try to do something Survivor Series related in November, and maybe even something Halloween Havoc related. I reviewed Halloween Havoc 98 last October. I might be able to throw something together before the Wednesday night Havoc show that I believe is on the 28th. Maybe I can review another one there as well, and I'll definitely do something for Survivor Series. So I appreciate that, Dominique, and we're going to try to do more and knock out a few more before this year comes to an end. And we got Devlin Husband in here as well. Oh, you couldn't catch Raw tonight, but thanks, dude. Glad you're here anyway. Appreciate the 5. Can't catch Raw tonight as I just got off work and have homework to do. Homework, my God. Good luck, man. So this review will just do fine, or will do just fine. I think you're right. You're going to be... There's a couple of clips you might want to check out on YouTube in terms of the Ali stuff, but... and maybe even the women's tag. I really like just the ass whipping they put down on Ruby Riott. It was wonderfully executed and wonderfully sold by Ruby. So that was entertaining. I got a few things to say about the Aaliyah Mysterio situation because we did not get to talk about that last week as I wasn't up here doing the Raw review last week. But a lot of people have some opinions on that. We're talking about a 32-year-old Murphy that they are hinting is having a relationship with a 19-year-old girl. And just based on everything in the climate right now and all of the other, just scandals and dirtiness that's kind of running through the wrestling business with the speaking out movements, this seems like the last thing they want to be doing. It was even interesting tonight, too, if you noticed. Last week on Raw, Aaliyah was dressed like... the old 80s Pepsi commercial with Cindy Crawford with like the jeans and the sexy tank top. She was dressed like that this last week, and then tonight she looked like a nun. So I'm almost wondering if she was like all in black all the way up to her neck. I'm wondering if WWE heard the fans be like, dudes, this is creepy, and they at least had her dressed a little bit more appropriately for tonight, which was a little bit more comfortable to watch because last week the whole thing was really strange. So we had some developments here with that, especially with Seth Rollins and Murphy. We'll get into that later as well. Interesting stuff. But yeah, Devlin, just sit back. I'll keep you up to date, dude. And I'll knock out this final one, and then I promise we'll do the Raw results here. Off Leather Wings, appreciate the 5. Are you familiar with Walmart convenience stores? I just got a job at one and have been enjoying it so far. No, I'm not familiar with them. I wonder if they're everywhere. They might be around here. Maybe I don't notice or I haven't recognized. But congrats. I'm glad you're liking it. I'll look for them. That's for sure. Where do you live? What part of the country? Yeah, I know she's an adult, but yeah, barely. Yeah, that's fun stuff, man. A lot of people were kind of creeped out by that. But anyway, we'll get into all that stuff as we go on here. Show opened up with a Randy Orton promo. Now, last week, I'm so bummed out I didn't get a chance to come up here and shit on the ridiculous segment with Orton and the night vision goggles and knocking out all the legends and dressed as a janitor. None of that made any sense at all. It was just one of the most poorly thought out segments I've ever seen. And it literally looks like they wrote that in 5 minutes. And it could have been, the whole idea, I guess, was fine, but they could have just done it in a so much more realistic way. This was almost insultingly fake, and just was horrible. So that segment really made me want to barf last week. So this week, Orton's back. He's kind of like in a backstage environment, cutting the promo. Goes on to challenge Drew McIntyre to one more match, and that's going to be at Hell in the Cell, which is what I said all the way from SummerSlam. Once that match ended in a backslide, and I'm like, they're going to do something here. They're going to do a trio of matches that's going to culminate in the Cell because these guys have been sending each other to the hospital. It's a very brutal, vicious, personal feud with a lot of bad blood. You can't end a feud like that in January and then expect Drew to go into the Cell against some completely random opponent. It's got to be Drew, or it's got to be Orton, excuse me. So during the ambulance match, it was kind of the same thing. It was a 5-on-1 handicap match. Drew McIntyre had all the help in the world, and he still barely won and was able to win. But again, it wasn't a pinfall. It wasn't a submission. He's got a backslide win over Orton, and then he threw him in the back of an ambulance for another win. There is room to do a third if you wanted to, and it's just like Triple H and Batista, right? Didn't they work 3 in a row? Triple H put him over all 3 pay-per-views, right? This is kind of like that. So I think what's going to happen is Drew will finally exercise this demon at Hell in the Cell. It makes more sense for him to be in the cell with Randy Orton, because one of my biggest complaints about the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view is it's just on the calendar. So you just have to make, usually you should just make a cell match when the feud calls for it. Oh, this is a pretty brutal feud. Let's throw him in the cell. With the pay-per-view, it just sits right there in the middle, and sometimes you have Hell in the Cell matches that don't make any sense. This one makes sense. So doing a third one, I'm completely fine with. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be fun, and I think Randy Orton will go down and put him over for a third time. And again, with the draft coming up prior to that, I think Randy Orton is a name that could head to SmackDown. And I do want to see that. I want to see somebody that has a title match get drafted this week. That way, there's more. That way, the implications are bigger for Hell in the Cell. If Orton gets drafted and then he wins the title, then you're going to swap the titles again. You're going to have the WWE go to SmackDown and the Universal come back to Raw. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but they could. And you could do the same thing with Jey Uso if he gets drafted or something like that. But I think you've got to keep the Roman family together. I think after the Uso stuff runs its course, maybe they team up or something, or he earns Roman's respect and they become heels, and then Jimmy comes back to join the fray and all of that. So I do think it's possible, though, Randy Orton gets drafted. And then he loses and then heads to SmackDown, and maybe he can challenge for the Universal title one day. That's kind of what I've been thinking all along. So as Randy Orton is challenging Drew, he actually shows up in the little room, the little conference room that Randy's in. They brawl. Drew McIntyre beats the shit out of him. Later on, he would go on to accept the challenge for Hell in the Cell, and that match is on. So good stuff there. First match, we had a 6-woman tag. Asuka teaming up with the newly traded to Raw Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, defeating Zelina Vega, Natalya, and Lana. After the match, Nia, Jax, and Shayna come out and kill Natalya and Lana, which was kind of funny. I think they put Lana through a table again. Was it Lana? I'm pretty sure it was Lana. She's been taking the table bumps lately, so poor girl's just been being shit on ever since Miro made his debut in AEW. But one of the more, concerning and annoying things about this whole deal is sending Mandy Rose over to Raw and essentially, ending the hottest angle you've had on SmackDown in quite a while, one that kind of they fell ass backwards into with Mandy and Otis, and now they've split them apart, and now that she's on Raw, there's like no mention of that. There's no mention of Otis. There's no mention of that lawsuit thing or the Miz being the one to pull the strings to get her there or any of that stuff. She just seems to be like a regular person on the roster. Like she's almost taken a step back. She was finally starting. I was never even a fan of Mandy Rose at first, and she made a believer out of me during the Otis stuff and during the Sonya Deville stuff, and then the match at SummerSlam I thought was really good. And I'm like, you know what? She is actually not worthless. She can work in there. She's got a personality. She's good. And now she kind of just looks like she's another run-of-the-mill Raw roster member with nothing to do. She's just in these random-ass 6-man matches. They took her away from a story to put her on Raw with zero story, and to me, that doesn't do her any favors. And I want to see Sonya Deville come back. I want to see that whole issue be, revisited again with Sonya coming back to either, have another war with Mandy or to maybe reconcile or something like that. I would like to see how the Otis stuff plays out. He's got court on Friday, which should be pretty funny. I just can't wait to see him in court. I hope he brings a roast beef sandwich with him or something. But for Mandy just to be there now and just to be there, and it's like everything she did on SmackDown is just done. What a waste. Just what a horrible waste. So I hope this doesn't harm her at all, because she's actually been somebody that that's grown on me in the past few weeks. What's the matter, Devlin? You don't want the red belt? Come on. You might want the red belt. By the way, smash that thumbs up button for me if you will. Numbers on the channel have been really low in the past couple of weeks, but that happens all the time. 2 weeks from now, they're going to be really high. So on the low audience nights, I can use all the likes I can get. So hook me up. What do we have next? We had another call. I think WWE is putting the pedal to the metal on R-Truth. They're trying to get him 100 title reigns, I think. He's won his 43rd or 44th tonight. Drew Gulak. It was a pretty funny segment, the first one, because Gulak was dressed as a janitor, and then he attacks R-Truth and beats him for the title, but R-Truth thinks it's Randy Orton from last week, and then Gulak runs away, and then later on in the show, R-Truth is able to find him near a dumpster, and Akira Tozawa is involved, and R-Truth wins back the title. So you guys help me out. 43 or 43 or 44 title reigns. If they give him a title loss and a win on every show, or on every Raw, they can get there, probably in less than a year, especially if they do multiples in one night and on pay-per-views and things like that. Maybe by the time we get to next summer, he'll be a 100-time champion. I wouldn't rule it out at all. We get the beginning of the Ali stuff after that. The Hurt Business approaches Ali, Ricochet, and Apollo again. So Apollo just cannot shake these guys. He's had 486 matches in a row against the Hurt Business, and he's about to have another one. MVP gives his pitch like he's been doing for the past 7 years to these guys. You should join the Hurt Business because this, because that. Of course, they're all resistant to it, but he said, look, Cedric was resistant to it at first too, and look where he is. He's another guy that I think might be in quarantine right now, because I think last week he said, or they said he was at Hurt Business boot camp. I think we all know what that means. So now he's trying to pitch his shit to these guys for the umpteenth time. They walk away, and then Ricochet kind of lags behind and has this look on his face like he's considering it. And when I saw that, I'm like, I wouldn't do that. He's just one guy that I wouldn't turn, because it's the Hurt Business. It's not the flippy shit business. You already got Cedric there. Cedric, he's extremely athletic like Ricochet is, but I guess he has a little bit more of like an ass kicker look to him. Where Ricochet, I've said it before, Ricochet looks like the dude, the black guy in Scrubs. You know what I mean? He's just got that really nice, kind-looking face. There's nothing menacing about him at all. And he's got an extremely acrobatic and athletic style of wrestling. It should not, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to be able to get this guy over. Give him good quality matches against good quality opponents and have him win a lot and string him up. I remember when he beat Drew McIntyre in the King of the Ring tournament a couple of years ago on Raw, in one of my favorite matches of the past couple of years. Why can't you just do that with him? It should be so easy. It takes negative effort to get a guy like that over. Just give him good matches against good opponents and have him win. The fans will get behind him. They did before, but now all this nonsense that he's involved in, it's so dumb. And so when he kind of gave that look, I'm like, don't do it. Don't turn him. And I was happy that he would not, in fact, join the Hurt Business later on. After that, we get a Seth Rollins and Murphy promo. Murphy, they're in the ring, and Murphy's still kind of irked about last week, about everything that Seth Rollins did. The whole thing with the phone, I think, was equally as dumb as the Randy Orton stuff with the night vision goggles and the janitor outfit, because, it was like Seth like hacking into somebody's phone to read their messages, after Peckergate of 2015 or whatever year it was that, he had his junk revealed to the world. It amazes me that he's like kind of invading people's privacy like that. And he almost looked like he didn't understand how a phone worked. What is this? A message, a text message of some kind? How interesting. It's so fucking stupid. So they play the whole conversation on the Tron there or whatever. So Murphy's irked about that because he's shown a lot of kindness to Aaliyah. He approached her backstage last week. And, of course, we read the text messages between the two, and she seems to like him as well, and she feels, not threatened by him at all. And he's kind of sticking up for her a little bit. So he kind of gets on the mic and demands that asks Seth Rollins to apologize. And Seth gets all bent out of shape and starts slapping him around and just starts insulting him. And, I am the Messiah and you're the disciple. What did he say or whatever? And he just keeps hammering this home. And I'm like, how much abuse can one guy take? They're both trained wrestlers. Rollins is not bigger than Murphy. Murphy's actually probably a little bit bigger and stronger than Seth. Why is Murphy not just kicking his ass? I don't understand. Like, why is he not just saying enough is enough? Why is he that threatened by Seth Rollins? Yeah, he's a world champion. He's beat Brock Lesnar in WrestleMania main events before. But still, why are you showing that much fear to him? So that part got a little murky to me, because after they kind of have their little deal, Humberto Carrillo and Dominic come out. And I can't remember if that was a scheduled match or that was one that just happened impromptu, but we got a tag then between Rollins and Murphy, and they defeated Humberto Carrillo and Dominic. I think Murphy pinned Humberto, I think was the finish there. And that's where I'm not sure what happened next, because something happened backstage and then the apology role seemed to be reversed. Then it turned into Rollins demanding that Murphy apologize to him, and he even gave him a time limit. He says, you have until 10 p.m. to apologize to me. So that meant we're going to get another segment between these two. So I didn't understand what happened there. I think I left the room or something like that. So I don't know what went on there, but now Rollins wants an apology out of Murphy. After that, we get the Kevin Owens show. This was hyped up to be a Bray Wyatt segment with Bray as his guest, because we saw Alexa Bliss and everything go on last week on SmackDown, and Kevin Owens got assaulted by The Fiend, and he even said that it kind of changed him a little bit. He's not brainwashed like Alexa, but he feels differently ever since coming into contact with The Fiend. You might want to go get a coronavirus test there, Kevin. But Bray never comes to the ring. Instead, we get a Funhouse segment on the Tron. Bray Wyatt sings some sort of a friendship song or whatever, and he won't come out to the ring, so Owens gets pissed, and he says, I'm going to come back there and find you. And as he's leaving and going up the aisleway, he is attacked by Aleister Black. And I actually haven't even listened to Aleister Black's new theme. I know he had one that debuted last week. I loved his old one, but WWE is trying to move away from all of these CFO themes due to royalties and percentages and shit like that. So all of these great theme songs are now going to be shit canned. And I think the reviews are mixed on Aleister's. I still haven't even heard it. So I will do that and offer opinion on that soon. But I don't like that they got to change everything up just because of, money, just to put more money in their pockets. And then we suffer for it with a shitty theme. But I think people are more torn, on the theme. Some people like it a lot, some people don't. I'll let you guys know. Friendy Murphy, Surfy Murphy. I thought the Messiah gimmick might be ending Stone Cold. I actually really did, but it's still going strong, so we'll see. After that, we had Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman is backstage at one point with Adam Pearce, and he's like demanding a match or something, and luckily Pearce has got a functioning fucking brain in his head, because he's like, you're not a Raw guy, because I didn't think any of that mattered. I just thought anybody could be on Raw or SmackDown whenever. I don't even know why we have a draft. Strowman was on Raw Underground a couple of weeks ago. By the way, is that officially dropped? Is it done? They just get rid of it? I can't believe they would drop Raw Underground but not Retribution. Neither one were great, but I think Raw Underground was better than Retribution. And I don't know where it was, but Strowman is still there. He looks like he's kind of got some new ring attire. He's been wearing that lately. He wants a match. Pierce agrees to have him do like an exhibition match against Keith Lee. So Keith Lee has got like another big-time opponent here, and every single time this guy wrestles on Raw, it's a DQ or a count out or something like that. Like, he never gets a finish. It's like his gimmick now on Raw. And you knew this was going to be no different, especially in a exhibition match type of scenario here, where they're just going to go out there and shoulder tackle each other a few times, and that's exactly what they did. They fell on the outside of the ring, and you guys help me out. Was it a double count out, or did someone get counted out? They just basically brawled together, and like that was the end of it. So I don't know if that's going to be a pay-per-view match or not, or whatever. I think they're putting a lot of big names in front of Keith Lee that I think you can slow down on a little bit. You don't need to rush everything. He's already been in the ring. He's been on Raw for just a handful of weeks, and he's already wrestled Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre a couple of times each, and now Braun Strowman. You can start him a little bit slower than that. It's okay. You don't need to put him in there with every single guy that's large. Let him string up some victories. I don't know who the hell. Come on, Bruce. Get it together, dude. So anyway, that happened, and all that's going to mean is it's going to lead to another match down the road between the two. So that might come at Hell in a Cell. It might be. It reminds me of Mark Henry and who's the other big guy he wrestled with back then? Mark Henry and Big Show or something like that. That's what it reminds me of. So I don't know if we need to see it. I think you can have a better and more fun opponent for Keith Lee. I'd stick him on SmackDown and give him matches with Matt Riddle. Those guys work marvelously together. Just something that can really showcase how good Keith Lee is, instead of just, Vince just likes those behemoths. He likes matching them up. He has no patience to wait for it. He has no patience to build up to it. He just wants to give it all to us right away, which I think is a mistake. After that, we had Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin defeating Apollo Crews and Ricochet. That was set up backstage earlier on when MVP pitched Ali and Apollo and Ricochet to join the Hurt Business, and Ricochet seemed maybe slightly interested prior to the match. He came out and said no. He tried to make it funny. It sucked. Basically gave a hard pass on MVP's pitch to join the group. Then they had the match, and they lost. And Lashley and Shelton beat him up, which was kind of funny. Then we get the top of the hour. Now it's 10 o'clock. Now it's time for Rollins and Murphy to get in the ring. Seth Rollins is demanding Murphy apologize, and Murphy is finally, looks like he's fed up. At one point, Seth is even, grabbing his beard, just really getting in his face, and that's when it was kind of annoying me. I'm like, Murphy, what the fuck, man? How long are you going to take this? And then finally he snaps. He attacks Seth Rollins, starts brawling, assaulting him, kicking his ass, grabs a kendo stick, starts wearing him out with that. And Seth then backs off. He starts backing off and begging for mercy. And that's when Murphy just looks like an idiot again, because Seth backs off and is like, please, please don't hurt me anymore. Murphy lets his guard down. Seth jumps up, thumbs him in the eye, tries to rip his eye out. And then he's got the kendo stick and he turns the tables and beats the hell out of Murphy. So Murphy has no street smarts at all in this. Seth jumps out of the ring for a second and Aaliyah shows up, gets in the ring, gets over Buddy Murphy, and basically trying to stop Seth from assaulting him, and the Mysterio family follow her out there. First Dominic, then Mom and Dad. So they're all out there trying to pry her away from Murphy, and she still seems very concerned with him, and you don't understand, he's not a bad guy. And Dominic's like, how can you support him after what he did to your dad and whatever he did to me and all of this? So there's more here than meets the eye, and this might turn out to be, since Seth Rollins questioned the paternity of Aaliyah, it might not be a relationship. I mean, maybe it's a brother and sister type of thing. I don't know. Either way, it's an interesting thing that they're doing, with those two, just given the age difference. This wouldn't matter at all in the 90s. Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross would be congratulating Buddy Murphy on scoring a 19-year-old. But in today's climate and everything, and especially with the speaking out, without the speaking out movement, it might be hard to pull this off. But with all of that's happened in the past few months, this just seems like just a really just kind of, of all the storylines you can do, I don't think this is one that's going to be a game changer or one that's going to improve ratings in any way. All it's going to do is make you look tone deaf as hell and completely oblivious to the nature and the climate around you, especially in wrestling. And wrestling is just such a bigger deal right now because of everything that's going on scandal-wise. The Velveteen Dreams and the Joey Ryans and all these other people out there. It's all weird. So I'll be interested to see what the payoff is. It looks like, are we going to get another match here? Are we going to get a match with Aaliyah on the line? Is Aaliyah going to be on a poll? Is her paternity or her custody going to be up for grabs? Well, I guess she's 19, so nobody can have custody of her, really. But is it going to be a similar situation to SummerSlam 05 with Dominic and the ladder match and all of that? I don't know. And I don't know what's going to be revealed between the two. And what I can't figure out now as well is that, did Murphy really break away from the Messiah, or did he just snap and attack Rollins, and then Rollins is going to wind up suckering him back in? You would think he's done now, with Seth trying to pull out his eyeball and the two brawling pretty viciously with each other. You would think that things have got to be over between them, but hell, maybe not. Maybe Seth finds a way to get him back into the fold, and Murphy continues to be a disciple of Seth. I think it's possible, because Murphy just seems really stupid. He doesn't seem like he understands quite what's going on. He can't see himself being manipulated. He doesn't understand that he's being used, and he doesn't understand that he's got some strength too, and he should stand up to Seth Rollins. And I just worry now that after that whole situation, he'll find a way to get, and then we'll go through all this shit again next Monday. I don't want to see that happen. Kind of hope this thing runs its course sooner rather than later. Hey, moving Matt Riddle over to Raw, I'd be into that. Why not? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that, Devlin. Thanks for the $5. Remember when Jason Jordan was the worst thing on Raw? Retribution has made that seem like the golden era. I still can't believe they did that, especially nowadays. Trying to pass people off as family members is just dumb. It was dumb enough in the 90s with Edge and Christian and Devon and Bubba. Well, they were brother tag team prior to WWE, but WWE just always wanted to make everybody brothers. Bart and Billy, Bo and Beverly, you know, everybody had to be brothers. And I swear, if this was the 90s, they'd make Dominic and Humberto Carrillo brothers. I guarantee it. They'd be the Mysterio brothers or some shit like that, tag team. But we'll see if we go back to Babyface Murphy. We've seen Babyface Murphy before. He had one hell of a moment for himself a couple of years ago in Australia when he won the Cruiserweight title and stuff. I think people were behind him. He had a couple of really good matches with Roman Reigns that kind of got him recognized. Remember that, right, on SmackDown and stuff? So I'd like to see Murphy get another shot at something like that instead of just being a sidekick, instead of being a disciple. You know, him now running alongside Rollins for this long. You know, he's been working with a main event guy for the past few months. The point of that usually is to help elevate somebody and give him that rub of working with a top guy. He's done that for a while now. You do the split here, you know, the equation here usually results in the stock being elevated in this wrestler. But the way WWE does things might be the exact opposite for all we know. After that, we get the tag team title match. I was slightly looking forward to this one only because I thought maybe Ruby and Liv had a snowball's chance of actually winning here and can capitalize on some dissension between Nia and Shayna because they don't like each other. But they didn't need much help here. This was a pretty big annihilation, and it was really well done. Ruby and Liv sold the shit out of this. In the beginning of it was basically just Shayna Baszler just destroying the arm, the right or left arm of Ruby Riott, and she's had her shoulder issues before, and it was a really brutal attack. And Liv is helpless to do anything about it on the apron, and Ruby is selling it like $1 million, just with her arm just flapping around. It really looked like she was injured bad, and Shayna was loving every minute of it. Ruby somehow survives this. She survives a commercial break and even gets a hot tag into Liv Morgan, who comes off and briefly fights off both of them for a little while, but in the end, she's able to get her ass kicked as well, and then Shayna gets her hands on Ruby again, locks her in the Kurafita clutch, and Ruby's eyes were just like bulging out of her head. It was a great shot. I almost used it as the thumbnail until Ali joined Retribution, but it was a really good visual there of Ruby just selling it. Liv is helpless to do anything about it. Finally, she taps out, and she's just laying there broken in a heap, and Liv kind of crawls in. She's like in tears over the annihilation of her friend, and Shayna and Nia kind of stand over them with the titles. That was the very definition of an ass kicking. That was a dominant team asserting themselves over another, and not only beating that team, but beating them so bad to where they probably don't want another title shot, not as long as they are champions. So I actually liked the match, and even in the loss, I thought Ruby and Liv did a really good job of selling how overmatched they were, and that's their job, and they did well. So Shayna and Nia continue to roll. Don't know what the future of them are going to be. They missed their title match at the pay-per-view because of they were not medically cleared. So now they're going to resume their deal. Who's going to knock them off? Who's knocking off Shayna and Nia? Who's going to capitalize on the two of them finally maybe arguing with each other, coming to blows or something like that in the match, and some team is going to be able to take advantage of that. I think that probably happens down the road, well after the draft, but I don't know who's going to do it. Who are our teams right now, really? Unless they just slap two ladies together again, I don't want to see that. That's likely what they'll do. They'll just put the two of them together. They'll put two more together and have them beat them or something. I don't know. After that, we get the big reveal of Retribution. We've got Ali taking on MVP. So this is going to be a one-on-one match. They had a little conversation backstage prior to this happening. Match goes on for a few minutes. Lights start to flicker. Retribution logo hits the Tron. They show up. They surround ringside. And Ali, who has been very resistant to all of MVP and the Hurt Business's advances, all of a sudden finds him in a position where he's got to fight alongside them. And even in the ring, MVP's like, "What are you going to do?" He's like, I'm with you. Like, he has no choice. So he kind of backs up and gets with them and fights alongside them, seemingly as Retribution is going to attack. But before that happens, he walks away from them, jumps on the outside of the ring, approaches Dio Madden and T-Bar and whoever the hell else, Pancake or whatever is out there. And he goes out there and I always love that reveal when they do it. He walks up there, gets right in his face, and then kind of turns around and looks at Hurt Business, and MVP's like, what the fuck? And then he just kind of points and he instructs Retribution to run in the ring and attack, and they swarm the Hurt Business. Lashley almost kicks all their asses by himself anyway, but eventually the numbers game catches up there, and they put a pretty good hurting down on the Hurt Business, and they get in the ring, and Ali stands between them and does a little hand gesture or whatever the fuck, and it looks like he's going to not only be the member, he is the leader. And like I said earlier, I think this is a good thing for him to do because it gives him something to do. He's been virtually invisible on the roster for the past couple of years. They've done nothing with him. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but based on how bad Retribution, the angle has been so far, but it can't be, God, it certainly can't get any worse. And giving Ali a chance to do something like this and have a role unlike any other he's ever had in the company since he's been there, you know, turning heel like this and being like the leader of a faction. It's weird, and I'm not sure how much it fits because Retribution is like, you know, they're ass kickers, and they got this, you know, cruiserweight guy. He's going to be their leader, but then again, there's a lot of 5'8" dudes in that faction apparently under the hoods running around. So I think this will show us a side of his personality that maybe we haven't seen before, and maybe like the Dark Order, they can turn the corner a little bit, and they can turn all this silliness into something that's maybe not that half bad, you know. And I almost think that maybe they should try to take a Dark Order approach to it and maybe not be too serious. Don't be a comedy act by any means. But one of the things that I think is making the Dark Order work a little bit better is that they're not trying to pretend to be some serious, you know, we're going to take your souls and, you know, serious bullshit or whatever. They are showing up on the Being the Elite segments. They have entertaining stuff on Dynamite. They have entertaining segments, and they can be a threat, but they can have an entertaining side to them too. And we've seen a comedic side of Brody Lee that I wasn't sure was really there, and now I'm seeing a lot of that in the last few weeks from him, and he's becoming pretty entertaining. So I'm not saying being a copycat of that, but maybe keep it to where you're just not trying to be so serious, because the fans aren't taking this seriously. So just tread that line if you can, you know, to where they're not trying to pass themselves off as some serious threat. Oh my God, everybody better watch their back, because that's not the case. They showed up in one segment tonight. That's it. You know, it's not like they're wreaking havoc like they did before, and they're showing up in every segment. They're doing their damnedest to sabotage everything. That doesn't seem like what's happening here. It seems like they're actually just going to be targeting specific people, and they've really had that issue with the Hurt Business. And now I'm curious if the Hurt Business are baby faces. I don't think so, but it's funny how they can be such shitty heels and then, you know, immediately turn into a babyface role when they're fighting off all these Retribution guys. But good for Ali. Gives him something to do. He's so deserving. You know, he's so deserving of at least an opportunity. Maybe a lot of us would have preferred to see him as the hacker rather than the leader of Retribution, but at least it's something, and let's see if Ali can surprise us, and let's see if WWE can once again fall ass backwards into something that's really good, and because of the performance by the people in it. So best of luck, Ali. We love you, man. Thanks, Devlin, for the 5 more. Dark Order is the best thing on BTE. Absolutely love Brody Lee yelling at John Silver. I do too. And Silver being an absolute moron. That's fun stuff. That Chili's money. Yeah, I'm loving it. Brody Lee is just hysterical to me. I still laugh when I see people like shitting on him on Twitter. Oh, he's not very entertaining. Well, then you're not watching, motherfucker. He's pretty good. And he's definitely, maybe at first I wasn't a huge fan of the Exalted One. I thought his ring attire looked a lot like Repo Man. It took me a little while to get used to it. But now that I'm used to it, I enjoy seeing him on Dynamite. I enjoy his segments. I enjoy his promos, as weird as they are. I don't know where that dog collar came from last week when he challenged Cody to the dog collar match, and he just ran backstage and said, "Give me that," and he's got a dog collar in his hand. Where the hell did that come from? Who had that? But that's almost like part of its charm. I just he's really cracked me up. Yeah, I feel like Mike, you know, if they have dropped Raw Underground, I think they could have still given it a chance, right? Like, not everything is great right away. So if WWE didn't feel like it was working, then do something to make it work. I thought the concept wasn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, it's a 3-hour Raw. Got to fill the time somewhere, and it was a great way to introduce new people like Dabba-Kato and Riddick Moss and whoever else they kind of have been using lately in there. It was a good way to kind of establish them as ass kickers type of thing. So I don't know. Maybe it'll randomly be back. Shane has been invisible as well. So if it's not coming back, you got to think that you're going to see Shane gone for a while, because otherwise it's like he's tucked his tail and ran. You can't just bring him back to TV now in a completely different storyline, because he, we all just remember him from the Raw Underground stuff. So I think they should have given it a little longer to breathe, and maybe even tried some new things with it, let it evolve and work with it, but instead they just gave up. At least that's what it looks like. I mean, they might bring it back now, but it's been 2 weeks now that it's been missing. So I think it's done. What are the websites saying about it? Because you guys know better than me. I've still been out of the loop. Zane, I thought that NXT was a part of the draft. I thought maybe they were. Maybe I'm wrong. Because I said last night that I just feel like Gargano and Candice will be moved up to the roster. I thought that maybe they would be involved in the draft, or NXT would, but maybe not. I guess it's just Raw and SmackDown. Yeah, Undertaker 95 purple lights. These are actually set on blue. It probably just looks purple in the background there. But yeah, I got the LEDs set to blue. I remember that when they brought Taker back as a baby, or as the revised Undertaker, and they had the purple gloves and stuff. I like the gray. I wish he would have stuck with it. Otherwise, you had to have him have the purple in the SummerSlam 94 match so you could tell who was who. I loved WrestleMania 13 when he came out in the old school Undertaker gear, just like the days, like the early days. All right, well, that just leaves us with the main event, right? Main event, 6-man. They advertised it all day or all week. Drew McIntyre teaming up with the Prophets of Streets, taking on Bobby Roode, Dolph Ziggler, and Randy Orton in a 6-man. I knew they were going to do this. I knew it, especially after Drew beat the hell out of Randy Orton earlier on in the show. I'm like, Orton, they're going to do one of the deals where the champion's pinned, because I do not think Drew McIntyre's dropping the belt to him at Hell in the Cell. I think he'll finally beat Orton and beat him definitively, and it'll be 3 straight pay-per-views in a row that Orton put him over, just like Triple H and Batista back in the day. So that's fully what I expect there. So on the way to that and on the road to that, Orton's got to get a couple of shots in, you think. So I kind of had a feeling here that it would be not only the heels winning, but Orton actually pinning Drew. That's exactly what happened. Hit him with the RKO at the end. Almost pinned, what's his name? Not I can't think of his name. Not Montez Ford, the other one. He almost pinned him, whatever his name is. But wound up hitting the RKO on Drew and pinning him instead. So that's good. Gives him a victory over the champion. He can brag his balls off about that now on TV, and then you just keep moving forward into Hell in the Cell. And now we're gonna have we got 3 more Raws, I think, prior to that, right? Or 2 more. Yeah, 2 more Raws, I guess. So you still got some time to do more matches or more segments. I'm sure there's going to be a contract signing maybe in a couple of weeks. That could even happen next week. At least 1 more promo in the ring, and maybe some sort of another match. You could get McIntyre and Lee. We could see that. McIntyre and Keith Lee taking on like Randy Orton and Braun Strowman. That's what they'll do. $100. $100. They'll do that next week. Tag team match. And McIntyre and Keith Lee will win. They'll get McIntyre will either get his pin back on Randy Orton, or maybe Keith Lee will pin Braun Strowman, setting up their match at Hell in the Cell, which is probably what's going to happen. And who knows, by then on Monday, one of those guys could even be drafted. So we'll see. It feels like if they're going to put Strowman on Raw, he's going to stay on Raw. Like he's been on Raw the past couple of weeks. He's probably going to stay there. So I say he gets drafted either on Friday or he gets drafted next week. We need to talk about that draft too. Like who are the for sure names to where we just really feel like they're jumping? Would we say like Strowman, AJ, either Bayley or Sasha, one of them for sure. I still think Randy Orton could hop to SmackDown. I'd like to see the titles change. Maybe the mid-card titles, maybe the Intercontinental come back to Raw, the US go to SmackDown, but if they do that, the whole Hurt business might have to go to SmackDown, which I wouldn't hate because it would get them away from Apollo unless he follows them there, which he might, and they can continue their best out of 300 series on Friday nights on Fox. We'll see. Okay, yeah, I thought so. Thank you for that, Andrew. I thought that NXT was going to be a part of it. I'm glad that they are because that's another thing we should think about too is like which NXT stars are coming up. I've got my vote in for Candice and Johnny, even though I don't think it's going to do them any favors on the main roster. I can totally see WWE moving them there. So I think they're coming up for sure. Anybody else on SmackDown, or I'm sorry, on NXT that we feel is like a shoe-in or is just, it's just time? Do you think Dakota? Like Dakota and Raquel? I wouldn't hate them coming up to the main roster because you just had a big boost in the women's division on Sunday when Ember Moon and Toni Storm are going to be coming in to help that division. So you could lose a couple of girls and not suffer too badly and, keep Shotzi there and things like that. But if you move up Candice and Dakota and Raquel, maybe Dakota and Raquel together. I'd like to keep them together as the Shawn Diesel thing. Knowing WWE, they'll split them up and do a split angle on TV, and that won't happen. But I'd be cool with those three coming up. I think they could offer something. I'd like to see like Natalya go to NXT. Just put her back there. She does nothing for me. She can wear ridiculous outfits on Wednesdays. They do nothing for me on Raw. Adam Cole. Didn't think about that. And if that happens, is that maybe why they were giving O'Reilly the title shot? I mean, if Cole gets drafted by himself, maybe Undisputed Era sticks around, and O'Reilly is the new leader of the Undisputed Era. I don't know what was going on TakeOver with Ridge Holland showed up with a beaten up Adam Cole, so that's going to happen first, I suppose. Why is Triple H upset with NXT wrestlers? I listened to his conference call last night. And he was putting the talent over huge on their performance. So why is he upset? Well, Sky, I'm not quite sure what you're referencing there. I'll have to go up and read that conversation about your edge at WrestleMania 24. Oh, you're talking about Undertaker, I bet. Undertaker WrestleMania title wins. Yeah, 13, 24. Didn't he beat Batista too? Yeah, I didn't think about Adam Cole. That could be interesting, but it's weird though because you got the draft next week, and it seems like he might have just kickstarted something new on NXT with Ridge Holland, unless they do that match right away this Wednesday or something like that, and they tie all that up. They just started on Sunday, and then they do something on Wednesday, and then you call Adam Cole up. I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe he stays in NXT for a little while, but based on the length of his title run, I think you can move him up. Chelsea Green being called up. I could see that. I could see Chelsea being called up. Bring up Undisputed Era minus Kyle O'Reilly. Keep him there as a title contender? Sure. I mean, based on his performance against Finn Balor, the show of respect at the end, I can see him, really pulling some good babyface matches out of him and maybe be the one to beat Damian Priest for the North American title or something like that. I'd be totally fine with that. Wild card Velveteen Dream. Based on how he lost on NXT, I think that that could be a call-up for him, but I also think it could be WWE just giving him another break. They are not releasing him, it doesn't seem like, for what he has done. Triple H even referenced his bad year. He's had a rough year, and he's like reorganizing himself. Just the way they spin this shit is ridiculous, but he lost pretty definitively to Kushida last night. Kushida apparently turned heel, although I think breaking the arm of a pedophile is one of the most babyface moves you can do. But he kind of really injured Velveteen Dream and then re-injured him again, which makes you think that he's not going to be on television for a while. And that might be WWE saying, let's just let this cool off more. because they're good at that and sweeping it under the rug. And like I said last night, it would be a shame because I like Velveteen. I mean, up until this happened, he was one of my favorite guys. He's so charismatic. I love his in-ring work. I love his his ring attire. How he always does those specialty themed ring gears and stuff. And he's been so entertaining to me. I thought he was going to be the future of the company. WWE probably thought a lot of that too, and put a lot of investment into him. So if they are going to have to dump him or get rid of him, at least try to make someone in the process, and at least try to take all of that investment and transfer it into somebody else, and to have Kushida beat him down the way he did. Maybe that's the best they thought they could do out of it. But that could also mean he's going to get called, he's going to get drafted. But I don't think so. I think Velveteen is probably just not going to be seen maybe till like a couple months, or maybe the end of the year, or maybe the beginning of 2021, if I had to guess, because it looked like they did an injury angle, like his arm should be broken. He did a great job selling that, just like Ruby did tonight. I believed that Velveteen Dream hurt his arm. So he's trying to do right. He's trying to do the right thing, and he knows that he's in trouble. He knows he's lucky to have a job. So if they tell him to go out there and do the job, he's doing it, and he's doing it well. So at least he's eating his shit and liking the taste of it, But I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for him either. Rhea Ripley, yeah, maybe, but I kind of think they're going to give her another shot with the NXT. She did the promo with Triple H, or the interview, and Triple H kind of endorsed her a little bit at TakeOver, and she said that she wants the winner of Candice and Io, and Triple H basically says, you are going to be the future, So I could see that. I could see Rhea staying there and winning the title, but she could get called up because, they have put Toni Storm and Ember Moon back on the roster now, so that helps. I kind of want to see Rhea get another shot at the NXT. I was just so into it last year when she won the title at the end of the year like that. I'm like, she is going to be a superstar, and the wheels just came off, so maybe try again. Put Owens and Sane back together. That would be great. Bring Chris Hero to SmackDown and reunite him with Cesaro. Why not? Yeah, he's not with them anymore. I think he was let go in the big chunk. I think it was that, or maybe it was prior to that. But I'd like to see him come back. So those are good options there for NXT anyway. Maybe Adam Cole, definitely Gargano and Candice, and possibly even Rhea Ripley. Maybe more Undisputed Eras with Kyle O'Reilly lagging behind, or maybe O'Reilly by himself. That could be too. It could be reversed of whoever suggested that. It could be the opposite. It could be Undisputed Era staying and O'Reilly being bumped up. But I worry that O'Reilly just coming by himself to Raw or SmackDown isn't going to do anything. He'd be Ali. He'd be invisible. He'd be, backstage having conversations with the Hurt Business every fucking week and doing nothing of substance at all. So I'd rather see him just having kick-ass matches in NXT with the kick-ass talent there. Because last night, that's what we talked about in the show, and why that's such a good illustration of how good all that talent in NXT is. We saw no title changes, and I was fine with it. I didn't need anything earth-shattering. I didn't need any crazy swerves. I didn't need anything like that. We saw lots of title matches. Everybody retained, but every match was completely off the charts. And it was probably the best, one of the better takeovers, or the best takeover of the entire COVID era. And we've seen some good ones. In Your House was good. But I think 31 was better last night. It's a really good show. I enjoyed it immensely, and we talked about it. Yeah, Priest is tailor-made for the main roster because he's a bigger guy, and they seem like they've been grooming him a lot. He's a guy that I don't think is going to get a run with the world title. I think he'll get a shot. Maybe after he drops the North American title, he gets a shot against the NXT champion, falls short, but I think he's definitely a guy that goes to the main roster. He's got that type of character. He just seems like somebody that WWE would want on the main roster. Triple H seems to like him. And he was a guy, too, that at first, he felt like he was going to be one of those lost in the shuffle guys, but he impressed everybody, and his work was really good. And he won a big title and a big championship here. Now he's in the middle of a pretty decent run with it. So, yeah, he's a guy that I think within a year, I agree with JJ Leg. Within a year, he'll be main roster in it. That's for sure. Devlin, thanks for the $5. Can I write a paper for you? It's all about software development, which I'm sure it would be super easy for you. Oh yeah, software development, no problem. As soon as I get off the stream here, I plan on developing a whole bunch of software in my free time tonight. So yeah, no problem. You don't want me writing your papers, dude, because I want you to get good grades, and I will not help you with that. I will be bad, and you will be thrown out of school after they read the first 3 sentences of what I write. Like, who the hell wrote this? Takeover Portland was good. That's true. And Halloween Havoc, man. Halloween Havoc coming up on the 28th. That'll be 3 days after Hell in the Cell. It's going to be a Wednesday show hosted by Shotzi Blackheart. And what's cool about this is WWE has announced this 3 or 4 weeks in advance, allowing AEW to build the shit out of their show. And we're going to have 2 awesome shows on the 28th. I'm ready for that. I said last night that if there's any sort of WCW name or concept that WWE hasn't trademarked in any way, or if there's just something out there that they can use, some sort of a name, that would be great for them to call it that as well, because WWE did that to them when they had Fyter Fest booked, and they were like, oh, we're going to do the Great American Bash. Now it's AEW's turn to do the same thing to them. So I hope, and I bet on Wednesday, we got a big Wednesday Night Dynamite coming up, 30-year anniversary of Chris Jericho's career debut, which is just awesome. I'm not going to be home to watch that, unfortunately, so I'll have to catch it later, but I'm really interested to see all of those festivities. So maybe even this Wednesday, they'll announce some shit that they're going to do on 28th. Hey, join us in 3 weeks for a very special Dynamite. Load a couple of title matches up. Because one thing I worry about NXT too, I don't think they're going to do this. They're not like the main roster, but whenever the main roster has like Thanksgiving shows or whatever, it's always like dumb shit, like a food fight or a costume contest or something dumb like that. You're just going to have Shotzi hosting it here. So probably do a couple of fun little segments, some spooky stuff, and then just load it up with really good, solid matches. Put a couple of title matches on there. Put Rhea, Ripley, and Io Shirai for the title as like the main event. That's what I do. Put Balor against somebody else on the undercard. Just somebody that he'll beat. Because I think Balor needs to hold on to things until Karrion Kross comes back. And who knows by then, I don't know Karrion how long he's going to be out, but it would be cool if even he made some sort of a surprise return at the end of Halloween Havoc. Because he's definitely got a Halloweenish gimmick, and if him and Scarlett came out at the end like that and had a little face-off with Balor after he successfully defends against somebody, maybe like O'Reilly again, maybe against, I don't know, maybe against somebody who got drafted. Maybe against Kevin Owens. No, Kevin Owens is going to have to face Wyatt at Hell in a Cell, so not him. But just some sort of a cool opponent that would help spark a good rating and will make the ratings very interesting to read the following Thursday morning on the 29th. So I'm looking forward to the 28th because I think AEW has got a golden opportunity here to just stack a show up against Halloween Havoc and beat them in the ratings. And we'll see if WWE brings in main roster guys. Oh, let's have Roman Reigns on Halloween Havoc. They might. Demon Balor would be fabulous at Halloween Havoc. Something tells me Balor doesn't want to do it right now or something, or they're saving it. I think they should save it for Karrion Kross. I think the two of them hooking up as the Demon against Kross would be awesome. But Demon Balor being at Halloween Havoc would be a nice place to do it. Unfortunately, I don't think the PC or the Capitol Wrestling Center, which I love that they've renamed it that just for kicks. I don't think it's big enough to really do like the big pumpkin, but they did the In Your House set. They made a little miniature version of the In Your House set, so I think they can make a little miniature version of that old school Halloween Havoc set that WCW used in the 90s that looks so good. I would like to see that completely recreated, the set from 97 and 98 with the pumpkin and like the demon over top of it, you know what I mean? Like if they just do a smaller version of that, that'll be so great for nostalgia purposes to be able to see that. I hope so, man. Either way, at least they brought it back. We've been talking about that for so long, with all the other concepts that they brought back, like War Games and Great American Bash, Starrcade. Bring back Halloween Havoc, man. We've been dying for that one. Thanks to Sean for the $5. I appreciate it. Hey, good mic work. I've been here the whole time enjoying the review. Pick Monday Night Football over Raw. I think Ricochet needs to go back to NXT. I agree with that, too. He'd be a great guy to send back there, to send backwards, because he was good in NXT. I think my favorite moment of him there, who did he do it against? I forgot, but it was just a confrontation where, was it a champion standing out in the aisleway? Maybe it was Ciampa or something like that. And then Ricochet just does a complete front flip over the top rope, lands right on his feet on the floor, and walks right up to him and gets in his face. That was a great moment. You know, I think about moments like when I think of Ricochet, I think of that stuff. Fucking bring Will Ospreay in for a one-shot deal and have them work an NXT match together. That'd be freaking amazing. So yeah, sending Ricochet back to NXT, I'd be all for that. You know, he could be back there being a contender again for something. Give me some Ricochet and Finn Balor matches for the NXT title. Sure. Oh, Zane, if Halloween Havoc was on the main shows, they would have Boogeyman there. But I don't want to see Boogeyman in NXT. Finn Balor versus Ciampa would be good for Halloween Havoc. That they'll do. I bet you they will. Yeah, this year's Halloween Havoc should be better than 98. What a mess that show was. Hogan and Warrior, my God. Yeah, I reviewed it last October. Had fun talking about that. And for fuck's sake, nobody try to use any flash paper, please. I'd like to see a Chamber of Horrors match. The one that they did in like 90, I don't know what year it was, 92, where Abdullah the Butcher got electrocuted. Like, do that, but with like the cruiserweights. Have Isaiah Swerve Scott and Santos and his cronies and maybe a few others all in the chamber, and then somebody gets electrocuted. Why not? Have some fun with it. Be a good place for a debut. You know, Tessa Blanchard is still hovering out around there, and there has been a lot of talk about her coming in to WWE. There's been more talk about her coming into WWE than going to join her father in AEW, and I think AEW could use her a lot more. But I think based on some of the things that came out about her, maybe her reputation, the WWE system is probably better for her for her survival, I think, and so maybe that's where she's going to wind up. And if she comes in, Halloween Havoc would be a great place for her to debut, especially if we have maybe a new champion crowned that night or something, and then she comes in, and then you got a roster with Tessa, with Io, with Ripley, with Toni Storm, with Ember Moon. That's not bad at all. Obviously, some of those ladies might be moving up to the main roster, like Rhea, but you add her to the mix. That's not a bad. It's not a bad looking division. It got a lot better last night with them coming back. Yeah, Ramon Coffey, I've got a review on TNA Bound for Glory 2010 coming up, hopefully within a week. Working on that now, and then after that, I'm going to try to do something maybe for Halloween Havoc, and definitely a couple of Survivor Series related videos will be coming here in the fall. So yeah, we got upcoming reviews, dude. I still got some work to do this week around here and stuff, but for the most part, I can start trying to concentrate on getting some videos done again. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the leading match there. Have they done it yet? Have they done Balor and Ciampa? I feel like they have. Didn't they do one of the first ones? Maybe not. But that would be Ciampa would have to go down though, you know. I think Ciampa could Damian Priest is a face, right? Maybe Ciampa could beat him. Because I mean, if Tommaso, he has no desire to go to the main roster. We've heard that before. He said he'd retire if they made him do that. So I'd still like to see him wear gold, because I thought the dude was just a remarkable character, and I thought he had an awesome run as NXT champion, and everything he did with Johnny Gargano was fabulous. So having him maybe just take a step down and battle for the North American title, I'd be perfectly fine with that. Maybe we could even get one more Gargano and Ciampa match or something like that. It's possible, but if you had to put Gargano and Candice on the main roster, which show do you think they'd be better on? I kind of think they'd be better on SmackDown than Raw. Like if I'm envisioning like a dinner with a Gargano segment, that's kind of where I think it would be better on Fridays. It's a better atmosphere for some reason. My thoughts on the Carmella untouchable crap. That's exactly what it is. Crap. Nothing against Carmella. You know, nothing against her whatsoever personally. I was actually a little bit disgusted about some of the comments towards her online when that was revealed, you know, and just a lot of like hateful stuff, you know, talking about her looks and everything. It has nothing to do with that. What I find so just stupid about this new repackage is that WWE is 0 for 3 doing this gimmick. Like, do they realize that? Eva Marie, Emelina, and Lana have all done this exact same gimmick, and all three have sucked a huge sack of balls. They've been terrible, and Carmella already had an element of an entertainment factor to her because, you know, with the stuff she did with R-Truth, you know, she had a fair amount of charisma to her. I was never a big Carmella fan, was kind of indifferent about her at all. I didn't really care, but this does not seem like in her wheelhouse at all. You know, her being kind of the dancing kind of person that she was before. You could have just stuck with that, but they kind of wanted to give her a repackage, something new, but it's just a gimmick that it's not a new gimmick. It's been tried 3 times and failed. If this was some completely new idea that we've never seen before, that's one thing. Then I'd almost be behind it. I'm like, oh, good for her. You know, maybe can be something to rejuvenate her career. But this has never come close to working. And Carmella, what does she have to offer that Tenille Dashwood doesn't? You know, if they couldn't make it work with Emelina, they're not gonna make it work with anybody. Eva Marie, of course, was trash, and Lana sucks and all of that. But I don't think that this gimmick is going to do Carmella any favors. I mean, unless she surprises us all and gets it over, who knows? I just don't think it was necessary for her, you know, to bring her back and to try to act like we didn't know who it was when it was clearly her the whole time. And then when they did the big reveal on Friday, they started showing like B-roll clips of Carmella prior to her actually showing her face. You know, I've been here for so long, or all of the voiceover she was doing. I've been here for so many years, and by the way, that New York accent seems to be gone. And just showing clips of her from the past. And I'm like, well, there it is. It's Carmella. And then she kind of reveals herself with the platinum blonde hair. Now she's in the evening gown and all of that. I'm like, okay, so now you got super blonde hair and you're wearing an evening gown. Why is that going to make you champion? I don't get it. I think the whole thing's dumb. I feel almost bad for her, you know, because she's got some stroke there now. She's with Corey Graves, and they're a couple, and you know, she's probably always going to have something to do. This just seems like just a dumb gimmick. Like I said, they're 0 for 3, and likely they're going to be 0 for 4 once this whole ridiculous thing runs its course. Hey, thanks for that, Ramon. Appreciate the 5. Do I remember reading in one of those wrestling magazines that a fake 1-2-3 Kid was supposed to come to the WWF to team with Razor and Diesel? No. Maybe. I might. You know who out of back then, in 96, if they were going to do a fake 1-2-3 Kid, I would have done Steve Corino. Because he was little back then. He wasn't like he hadn't even really started his hardcore style. He even looked a lot like Shawn because he just was young looking and just looked like a little twerp. He might have worked as a 1-2-3 Kid, not nearly as athletic as Waltman, but look wise, you know, you put him in a little 1-2-3 Kid singlet, he might have pulled it off. I don't remember reading that, but I might have. I remember reading about Mabel being the third man, but I'm not sure about a fake 1-2-3 Kid. That would have been funny. That would have been awkward because he came back just a few months after that. He'd be back in early 97, so it would have been fun to see him come face to face with the fake 1-2-3 Kid. That's for sure. Yeah, JJ, I agree too. If what they did last night with Ridge versus Adam Cole, if they're going to hold that off to have some sort of a match at Halloween Havoc, that might prevent Adam Cole from being drafted, you know, to Raw or SmackDown if he's going to have a match announced for, you know, an NXT show, unless it's one of those deals where he gets drafted but then comes back to work the match or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're going to do there, but with him starting a new issue with somebody just a few days before a draft makes me think that he's not going. He might stay there, even though I think it might be time. Oh, I missed you. I missed that one, Deshaun. Sorry about that. Thanks, dude, for the $5. Appreciate this. Oh yeah, I know all about this, and I'm glad you mentioned this because it's a great segue. Fun fact: the Big Red Monster Kane made his WWE debut 23 years ago today. Your favorite Kane moment or moments of all time? That one, his debut, is probably one of my favorites, or my favorite of all time. But I did a review on that. I did a 20-year anniversary of Kane's debut and Bad Blood and everything a few years ago. I actually posted a link to that video today on Twitter when I acknowledged the anniversary of the death of Brian Pillman. This all went down on October 5th in 1997. prior to the Bad Blood pay-per-view, we found out about Bryan's death. Then we go into the pay-per-view, and Shawn and Taker have that barn burner, and that's where they revealed Kane. And one of Vince's few legendary calls, that's got to be Kane, because we had heard for months and months and months of him debuting from Paul Bearer. And I cannot believe it's been almost a quarter century since Kane debuted. I remember him as Unabomb in USWA. And then coming in as Isaac Yankem, and then New Diesel, and then finally being repackaged as Kane in his umpteenth gimmick, and it turned out to be, a Hall of Fame character. 23 years ago today, still blows my mind. So there's a lot of firsts that day. First ever Hell in the Cell, 23 years ago today. Kane debuted on the very same match. Prior to that show, we lost Brian Pillman. He's been dead now for 23 years. Brian would be 57, 58, something like that now, probably approaching 60. And then 2 years later, on October 5th in 99, was the terrible accident of involving Darren Drozdov, where he's been paralyzed from the neck down ever since 23 years ago when he got injured in that match with D'Lo. So yeah, any great moments I had with Kane is probably going to be just in the first few years of his career. Anything past 2001 don't really stand out to me, not even as unmasking, and certainly not any of the Katie Vick nonsense. But in the first few years there, a lot of what he did with The Undertaker was really good. I loved it when he burned the casket at the Royal Rumble. The WrestleMania stuff was good. The title win at King of the Ring in 98 was very memorable. One of my favorite finishes to a pay-per-view ever, with Kane winning the title and the shock on Austin's face the very next night on Raw. Probably my favorite Monday Night Raw ever, where Austin comes out in the beginning of the show and convinces Kane to give him a match, and then he beats him in the main event in the Gund Arena in Cleveland. The place went nuts. Roof exploded. So even though it was on a losing effort, that's one of my favorite Kane moments. His performance in the 2001 Royal Rumble was just incredible, and he was the MVP of that show, and he was the last guy eliminated by Austin. And then a few months later, he would beat Triple H for the Intercontinental title in like a chain match that was really good, and a lot better than I thought it was going to be going into it. So just off the top of my head, those are some of my favorite Kane moments, and I loved it when he inducted Pete Rose into the WWE Hall of Fame. I enjoyed that too. But yeah, the Kane gimmick is 23 years old. I was only 20 years old when he debuted, and that blows my mind. The Kane stuff and Shane was good. Who can ever forget Shane's testicles being hooked up to a car battery? That's just pure entertainment right there. And plus, by then he had lost the mask, and at first, he did kind of have that horror movie look to him. It was just tough to get used to, though, and it was kind of silly because they had said on TV for so long that the reason he wore the mask is because his face was all burned up, and then he takes the mask off and he has no burns. Where are your burns? That's a good one too, by the Psycho 45 Canaanites, when he was doing the promo backstage with Hogan and Rock, and he does the whole deal in Canaanites. I kind of liked it too when the NWO came in 2002, because by then Kane was established as a badass. He was he was really good in the ring. I always thought he was better than Sid and Nash in terms of in-ring work and stuff. And then of course, he had that short stint as the New Diesel. And then when the NWO came in, him and Nash had a couple of matches in the ring, I think, or they had a couple of run-ins and some tags or whatever. I'm like, that's weird, and you can go back to Monday Night Raw prior to Kane and see Kevin Nash versus Isaac Yankem in a couple of matches as well. But by then, when they came in 2002, Kane was a stud. Kane was better than Nash. Kane was stronger than Nash, and he was definitely better in the ring. And I kind of liked it when they kind of mixed it up a little bit. And I'm like, wow, it's old Kane or it's old Diesel and new Diesel or whatever the fuck. Anytime they interacted on TV, I liked it. His tag run with X-Pac was fun, especially with the heartbreak at the end or whatever with Tori and all of that. But when they won I remember when they won the tag belts, that was good stuff. And there was talk. I remember the dirt sheets were running the story. All of them were about Kane debuting a green Kane outfit, and everybody was flipping out. Because they're, God, you can't make this guy DX. He cannot come out there and crotch chop. After everything that he's done, when this gimmick and everything, it would have ruined the gimmick. And people were all, before he even debuted, people were calling him the Jolly Green Giant, and they're like, if they put him in a green Kane costume, it's going to be madness. Luckily, they didn't go through with that. The voice box, yeah, and that's another thing. You know, the voice box just went away. All of a sudden, Kane can talk. He has no burns, and all of a sudden, he can talk now. But at first, that was weird because it was a nice touch, but it was so bizarre because I'm like, they can't keep this up, you know, for all this, you know, all these years with Kane's, you know, with Kane's voice, and eventually they didn't. I think it was X-Pac. I remember a segment or an interview where somebody grabbed it out of his hand and was like, "You don't need this," and threw it away. And then I think it was X-Pac, and then he says like, "Suck it" or whatever. But probably the best was when The Rock made fun of him. Remember? My name is Kane. When was that? 2099, 2000, something like that. Good stuff. My name is Kane. I'll never forget that. I never saw See No Evil. Or maybe I did. I saw the movie with Halle Berry. And was that the same one? Halle Berry and David Otunga, I think, was in it. Was that the same one? Or was that a different one? I can't remember. I may or may not have seen See No Evil. Oh, yeah, and he burned JR. Poor JR. He's been beaten to hell by Austin in his hometown. He's been set on fire by Kane. He's had things pulled out of his ass by Vince McMahon and rectal surgery. He's been kicked in the nuts. Yeah, I like that Transferring Heat podcast. Always have a special place for Pillman. Was local hero around greater Cincinnati area. He actually lived about 10 minutes away. His son, Junior, I watched play football in high school. That's awesome. So, yeah, you're really close to them. Yeah, that was a really shocking death because, you know, when it happened, the deaths hadn't started yet. Like the crazy deaths, you know, because after Pillman, then came Owen, and then it was Rude and Perfect and Hawk and Elizabeth, and, you know, everyone just went right down the line and never stopped. But prior to that, the only serious tragedies we had were the Von Erichs, Gino Hernandez, Brody, Eddie Gilbert, maybe a couple of others, but that was it. It wasn't like this slew of where you just wake up one day, every single day you wake up, somebody else died. We hadn't gotten to that point yet. And Pillman was being featured on TV a lot, heavily, and he was in a big angle with Goldust. He had property of Terry in the whole deal, and then, you know, they're supposed to have the blow off at Hell in the Cell. Terry's going to turn and stay with Brian. They got this whole thing worked out, and then he turns up dead in his hotel room, and it was just so shocking. I remember hearing about it. I went down to my friend's house. Daniel, if you're here, you can refresh my memory. For some reason, I went to your house for this. And when I got there, you know, the announcement had just been made, and we watched it all go down there. No, I didn't know there was a sequel to See No Evil as well. But I remember, you know, hearing it for the first time and just being like pure shock. And you could see it, like there was some frustration in Vince's voice. WWE was salty that weekend because it was the first time ever that they had kind of started to acknowledge WCW. Vince seemed like super frustrated. He was annoyed. He even kind of hinted to the fact that there might be some recreational drug use with Brian. Just a couple of weeks prior to that, the Madison Square Garden Raw on the 22nd was when Vince told Brett he wanted him out of his contract. So Brett was about to go to WCW during all this. The Shawn and Brett stuff was going on. All the screw job shit was going on in the middle. Brett refusing to drop the belt at Survivor Series, and then you have Brian die. WCW's beating him in the ratings. You know, Vince was just losing it. And then the next night on Raw, finally, they start acknowledging WCW a little bit. They played the curtain call in the opening segment with Shawn and Triple H. That was like unbelievable for the time. Later on in the show, Jerry Lawler basically strong arms Vince McMahon on commentary into acknowledging WCW. Like for the first time, they're saying, all right, we gotta dig our heels in and fight here. And you could tell there was just like this attitude about them that they were just not having a good weekend, even though they had one of the greatest, you know, wrestling matches of all time with Shawn and Taker. They were riding high a lot. It was still like there was this dark cloud. And then I'll never forget them having Melanie on the show. To me, that was so weird. I got a couple of mic drops on the channel up on that whole thing as well from back in the day. But bringing Melanie on, that was just really weird. It's something they would never do now. And to, I don't want to use this word, but it's really what they were doing to exploit the death of Bryan, to bring her on for what? For ratings? Her husband just died, and you're going to have her on Raw 24 hours after he dies? Does nobody think that's a bad idea? Does nobody think that's crazy? And Melanie was pretty graphic in a lot of her description. She talked about how Bryan's first wife killed herself and shit. Like, this is not what you want on a wrestling show. And it was just super sad. I remember buying the Brian Pillman memorial t-shirt. They had released some t-shirt where all the proceeds were going to go to, Bryan or whatever, his family or charity or whatever. I remember buying that, and every time I went to a wrestling show and I wore it, I got compliments on it. They started doing the Brian Pillman memorial shows after that they would hold with WCW and WWE guys working them. I got a couple of those on. I got a couple of videos of those memorial shows of some really good matches. I think I got like a Benoit and Regal match on there or something, and who else? It's like an X-Pac and Jericho, some shit like that. There's some good matches on there, and some cross promotion, which is cool. Do I have Friday? Thank you for that, Ramon. Thanks for the 2. Do I have Friday in my DVD collection? It is, yeah, it's there. It's not there. This is all wrestling behind me. I don't even have my movies and TVs out, but yeah, I got Friday. Just the first one, though. I never cared about the other Fridays. I only watched and remember the first one. Didn't care about the other ones, really. Royal Duke, good to see you. Good, Micro. You're from the Bahamas. Nice. Been listening to you for almost 10 years. Holy cow. Well, greetings from the Bahamas, man. I got a buddy that lives down in St. Croix. I was just down in the Bahamas in January for the Jericho Cruise. Next time, we'll meet up. Thanks for being here for a decade, man. Appreciate it. Ken Shamrock wanted to be a part of Raw Underground. That would have been fabulous. Didn't Kenny and Shane have some run-ins? They have some sort of history, I think. Maybe it was back to the corporate ministry days or something I'm thinking of. But yeah, I could totally see Shane being the type of guy to bring him in. But if they did, he'd have to put somebody over, and I don't think Shamrock would even want to do that. Holy cow. Are you talking about Bryan's first wife? You're not talking about Melanie. Melanie's got it together, I think, now. She kind of seemed like a hot mess back in the day, but I think she has it together now. You must be talking about his first wife, but she was a nut job. She had been in and out of jail for years. Bryan Jr. has talked about it. I only know because she was my sister's jailmate in 2018. Holy cow. Oh, wait, so no, I'm not talking about her then. You talking about Melanie? I thought Melanie was all right. Because I know Bryan had a daughter with the first one, and she kind of like adopted her, I think. And yeah, and Bryan Jr., man, he was so young too. I mean, he barely remembers his dad, but I'll be damned if that kid has done a spectacular job of studying his father's career, studying his look, his mannerisms. He's gotten himself in great shape. He looks, now that he's getting older, when he was younger, he had no resemblance to Bryan at all. Now when he's getting older, and he's, really turning into a man and stuff, it looks so much like him. He's got the hair, he doesn't quite have the body yet, but he's getting there, and he definitely has the look, and he's only getting better and better. I'm such a huge fan of him. I'm glad he's in AEW. Perfect place for him to carry on that legacy, and the fact that he's using the name. He's awesome. Oh, so you are talking about Melanie. I'm trying to think of the last time I've seen her in anything, any sort of interview. I mean, I could tell back in that first one. I mean, she, remember the gun segment? She was on Raw in the gun segment. She had the big hair, the big '90s hair, and everything. Yeah, she's probably, I don't know what she's done or gotten into. I would assume it's drugs, or a lot like Tammy Sitch, who just can't get her shit together. That's a shame. I feel for Bryan Jr., because he's lost his dad, and he's got to deal with his mom like this. But kid's got a good attitude, despite everything, and he's worked hard. It's hard to work. It's hard to make something of yourself if you have no like parental guidance and stuff. If you have a broken home or parents that are irresponsible or in jail or or not around or not available or something like that, and to still work hard and make something of yourself, and get yourself a TV contract and and improve and apply your craft and just get better and better. That's what he's been doing. It's all you can ask out of the kid. And like I said, it's eerie sometimes to look at him. He looks just like Brian. Looks just like his dad. I've heard James Storm's name brought up a bunch of times. He signed? I didn't think he signed. Is Storm coming in? And put him back with Bobby Roode. No, wasn't aware about Chris Jericho's new book about his matches. I'd read that. I've seen a lot of Jericho's matches in person, man. Yeah, well, thanks for that. Yeah, I haven't seen I've seen a couple of Brian Jr.'s interviews, but I haven't listened to anything where he really talks about his family. It's probably not easy to talk about. She stole all the money. Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah, well, Brian led a wild life. You know, he's not going to be um, he's not going to be marrying Mary Poppins. You know, he's going to be, you know, he's probably went after the wild women. You know, he went after the partiers, the strippers, the, you know, things like that. That's the lifestyle he led. God, there's that one in your house, man. I think it was like I don't know which one it was now. Early 97 sometime. It might have been Revenge of the Taker. It might have been Cold Day in Hell. One of those. There's some backstage segment with Brian and Sunny, and she is all over him. You could just tell, like, the chemistry. I'm like, they've hooked up before. Like, there's no doubt about it in your mind. Like, they definitely did. So Brian was a wild one, and pretty much unapologetic about it. But that's the way it was back in the day. It was just a massive party. That's all wrestling was. You look at it now, just wrestlers sitting on Twitch and shit. You know, back in the day, they were eating a bottle of Somas and making asses of themselves in Waffle Houses and stuff. It's not like that now. Psycho 45. No, I do not have the Austin Era belt. You want to know why? Because I didn't like it. Sorry. I know a lot of people love that belt. I wasn't a fan because it was the successor to the Winged Eagle. And why would you replace the Winged Eagle with an uglier belt? It grew on me, but it's not one that I don't think it's one I'll buy a replica for. Now, the only ones I really wanted were the Intercontinental and the Winged Eagle. Otherwise, it's hard for me to justify paying money for a replica belt. But those, you know, were such a big part of my wrestling life. I purchased those. But the big blue one, didn't care much for. Smoking Skull one was cool, but again, not one that I feel the need to own. I would like to get the tag belts. I have looked at them a little bit online. They're a little bit pricey because I don't think they're really even available now on WWE. I think you got to find, like, you know, older ones. I didn't see them on WWE Shop. I saw every other belt but those. So maybe like the old school 80s tags, you know, just to complete the 80s and 90s trifecta there. I might want to get those. But they're the only ones that I would really probably consider buying. I wouldn't get the Smoking Skull. I like the Smoking Skull okay. I liked it maybe better than the big gold one that Austin had, but still not one of my favorites. I like the European title, kind of, you know, but again, I probably wouldn't buy a replica for that. I'm just an old school guy. I just like the old WWE belts from back in the day. I would like to get the big gold belt from WCW. I had one of the very first ones they ever did. Came out in '99. I got it really around the same time I got the TV title back there too. But back then the belt was so poorly made. It was just kind of like a prototype. It was like one of the first ones, and I got rid of it years ago. So I'd like to get a new version of maybe the big gold belt, because that one also I have a ton of memories, but that's probably it. The old school tags from the WWF and WCW's big gold belt, and those are probably be the only belts I ever need or want. The 90s ones I didn't care much for. I hated the Intercontinental title, the one they switched to after that one. And I didn't like the world title either. I don't know. It's AEW just had their first year anniversary of the first Dynamite, so I don't know if there's been enough time yet for any AEW people to be disgruntled enough to hop back to WWE. There's nobody even there right now that I would say, oh, they'd be great in WWE, because I just think that WWE would ruin whoever it is. Wouldn't matter. So maybe one name I thought about, if they were still doing Well, no, forget Raw Underground. If there's one person that I might like to see hop over, it's a weird one. Big Swole. I think Big Swole going to WWE and joining Cedric in the Hurt Business and being the first female member of the Hurt Business would be great because she's an ass kicker, man. She'd look great in that role. I could see her wearing a Hurt Business shirt. I think she'd look awesome. I think she'd be a better fit than like a Bianca Belair because she's just more rugged and just more of like a little bit of an ass kicker, where Bianca is just stupidly athletic. Did we get a Mr. Perfect segment with her tonight? I don't think we did. I've been liking what they've been doing there too, with her just trashing people in athletic contests and stuff because she's the best. If they did a segment like that tonight on Raw, I missed it. But maybe Big Swole coming over and joining the Hurt Business would be fun. Barry, sometimes I feel like everything I like you hate. It's probably just different generations. Definitely with the belts, I don't have the same taste as other fans because don't you also really like the Undisputed title, the 2002 title? I fucking hate that belt. And there's a lot of fans, a lot of people that tell me not only do they like the belt, it's their favorite belt. So, hey, I'm not saying you're wrong. You can like whatever you like. Just for me, I just never had any love for those belts. After 98, man, just changed for me. Like, I never saw a belt that was like, ooh, now that's a good looking belt. Only here and there. Otherwise, it's all, but like the age that I was at when I loved the Winged Eagle and the Intercontinental title is the same age you were at when you loved those other ones. So it's just a generational thing. That's all. If I was a little bit younger, I'd probably love those titles because that's what I was accustomed to seeing on TV all the time as a kid. That really helps develop your fandom and your memories and stuff, just like those did for me. So it's all subjective, just to everybody's different life. So I'm not trying to personally hate everything that you like, but I just think that's probably the reason for it. Better heel, MJF or JBL? I don't know. I'm going to say MJF because I think the better heels are the ones that you love to hate, not the ones that you hate and just hate. JBL had the go away heat, back in the day when he was cutting those stupid promos in 2004. I mean, the fans hated him. They didn't want to see him champion. They weren't ready for him. He was boring and all that. Where MJF just tickles us all silly. So I'm going to sell JBL and go with MJF because he's doing it right. JBL, MJF does it like the $1 Million Man. JBL does it like Mr. Perfect. JBL does it like guys like that too, where you really enjoyed hating them. Like it's fun. They're good at it. They can make you laugh even though they're being douchebags at the same time. Where JBL is more like a Baron Corbin, where you just rather not see him at all. You don't get that feeling with MJF. You want to see more of him. Where JBL you want to see less. Corbin is like that. And some other guys are like that. Oh, that's right, Barry. It's your favorite. The Undisputed title is your favorite. I remember now. Royal Rumble tournament instead of a Royal Rumble match this year? I don't know. I think they can still do a Royal Rumble match, even in the pandemic. Thunderdome Rumble. Apparently, the talent has been told to prepare to travel soon. Hopefully, that's still not coming until the beginning of the year. But if I was the talent, I'd be super annoyed right now, especially with everything going on with the Twitch and WWE taking now control. That whole story broke this week, of WWE taking control of the Twitch channels in 4 weeks. And then the wrestlers are now only going to get a percentage of what they make, and it's going to count against their downside guarantee. Man. Paige tweeted out something interesting today because Paige has been vocal. She's pissed, and I don't blame her at all. She said, I learned a lot about unionization today, or unionism today, or something like that. And we know Andrew Yang is on the case. Hopefully, if we have an administration change, he can actually do something and back up his words instead of just talking about it, because I would love for somebody to really challenge WWE on these things, because it just doesn't seem right. And the people in WWE, for a company that seems so obsessed with PR, with so obsessed with their image, do none of these idiots in that company realize that what's being done now and is designed to put a few extra bucks in their pockets could backfire and cost them a hell of a lot more in the long run, a hell of a lot more than they're going to make from this, where they just want to have a chunk of everything and they want to completely control these independent contractors to death, and it's going to harm morale. Talent is not happy. why would you want to fuck up your morale like that just to make a few extra bucks on the side? These wrestlers with their side hustles in their free time, they should have every right to do that. If you don't want them to use their wrestling gimmick names, fine. I guess I can understand that. But to take their money from them, fuck this company, man. My God. I really hope that this is the beginning of I hope this thing backfires and bites them in the ass. And all this crap that they have started is going to snowball. And it's going to turn around on them. And the way the industry functions is going to be completely changed. All because of their greed. Because they couldn't leave well enough alone and just let the talent live their damn lives. And I hope it backfires on them because nobody deserves it more than them. Nobody deserves to pay more than them. And I hope it costs them an arm and a leg, man. I hope it backfires and fucks all their plans up. I hope their stock drops and the whole deal. And the wrestlers, can celebrate a victory. And I hope somebody pushes back. The top guys have no reason to. Top guys are making tons of money. If WWE's paying me $3 million a year and they want to take a little bit of my Twitch money, I'm like, fine, I'm making $3 million a year. I don't give a shit. But if you're somebody that's, just making a couple $100,000 or something like that, and this is really, help supplement your income, like me. Like, what if my restaurant told me that they're going to take my YouTube money? How pissed I'd be? It'd be the last day they'd see me. I would not step foot in that place again. They'd never tell me that, but it was like, hey, we don't like that you have a side job, so we're just gonna take control of that and give you a percentage, and it's gonna count against your salary. I would be burning that place to the ground if they told me that. So, it just gives you this gnawing kind of just raw, sickening feeling in your stomach. Like, how can a company be this douchebaggy? How can they be this horrible? And this greedy and this selfish and this just fuck them, fuck them to death. I hope something happens. I'm glad Andrew Yang seems very vocal about everything, and so I hope he gets angry about it, and then the madder he gets, the more he tries to actually, help out here and help the situation and try to maybe rewrite how things are handled, because nobody seems to really have tried to unionize wrestling ever since Jesse took a crack at it back in the day. Who says that had to be it? Why'd you have to give up? It's been all these years now. So if there's ever a chance of things changing, if the way the business and the wrestlers are contracted and handled and controlled is ever going to change ever, this seems like the best chance. So fingers crossed. Vote, everybody. And if you're not registered, fucking register and do it. Yeah, and if I'm one of the, like Corey says, if I'm a wrestler in a bus, take my Twitch money. I don't care. I have a bus. Fuck you. But I'm thinking of like other people that, maybe might not have quite that level of financial security to where Twitch is actually now helping. They've been doing it for a few years now. They count on this income. And then to be told in 4 weeks it goes away, all the money, think about all the money and Austin Creed makes, off of his stuff and everything, just all of a sudden, you're not going to have that anymore. I'm like, well, shit, I've been counting on it, and I've been counting it towards my salary every year. I live a lifestyle based on this, and now you're going to take it from me? I just bought a house. If I would have known you were going to do this, I would have bought a smaller house, or whatever. There could be cases like that where this is really going to hurt some of the talent. And then some talent it's not. I mean, the talent that's one thing I will say about WWE, even though their internal workings are a complete mess, they compensate their talent well, especially the mid-level and upper talent guys are paid well. So if you're somebody that's willing to accept this because you're making a lot of money and they're giving you a lot of money anyway, I can see plenty of wrestlers having no issue with this. But there's also some that are going to have a big issue, but unfortunately, the ones that are going to have an issue probably aren't in the position to fight it, or to hold out and say, no, you're not taking it, and it just takes a couple of guys. I just wish, like if just like Seth and, and all the top guys together, if Seth and Drew and Orton and everybody else that's just kind of on top right now just said, no, we're not doing it. That's probably going to be the only thing to stop them, but I don't think that's going to happen. WWE is going to be able to control and manipulate anybody that they want like they always do. WWE owns Up, Down, Down. Yeah, they might actually own that one, but I'm sure he does Twitch too, right? Doesn't he do Twitch? I even posed the question to you guys this week on Twitter if there's a element to Twitch that you can do where you don't have to play games. And a lot of people are like, yeah, you should start a Twitch channel, just kind of treat it like YouTube or whatever. So I'm gonna look into that before the end of the year, now that we're getting settled in the new place, and maybe we can do some twitching. I do have retro games. I'll twitch some Mario, but in terms of just being up here for video games only, apparently there is a side of Twitch that you can just chat and kind of do live streams. And I know some of the other YouTubers use it and stuff, but they might play some games on it as well. So maybe there will be a good Micwork Twitch channel coming shortly. And if any of you are Twitch experts, if any of you are Twitch whizzes, and there's any sort of basic information you want to give me, hit me with it in a DM. Let me know the pros, the cons, what I need to do, what helps, get channels more followers, things like that. Any advice you might have to give me, and whether you think it's a good deal or not, or a good idea or not. And if you have anything helpful to offer, hit me with it on Twitter in a DM. I'd appreciate it. I'll knock out one more super chat, and then I think I'm going to get out of here. Victor Cologne, thank you, dude, for the $2. It's disgusting that WWE is taking their money. It is, you can. There's an argument to be made for why they're doing it, but it doesn't come off as anything else other than douche. It's just a really kind of just dick move for them to do that. Especially at their last earnings call, they were just reporting ridiculous profits. And just to pickpocket your talent even more, and to take more money away from them to give it to yourself, it's sick. It's sick. Yeah, TNA was on Twitch, right? I did know that. Anthony, you can scroll back a little bit earlier on in this podcast. We talked all about the Mustafa Ali stuff. I think it's good for him, gives him something to do creatively instead of just eating salad and catering for a year and a half. But in terms of like CM Punk coming back and being the leader of that, Retribution was such a silly angle. I'm almost glad that they're giving it to a current roster member instead of trying to, bring back a face from the past or whatever. Let's see what Ali can do. Let's see if Mustafa Ali can turn this ridiculous angle around the way Brody Lee did with the Dark Order. That was just so silly and so dumb, and it turns out now to be, one of the more entertaining things that we have in wrestling. So I'm gonna hope that Ali helps, but then again, who knows? But I'm happy for him. I'm at least happy that he's doing something, because we thought he'd be the hacker. So the fact that he's doing this instead, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, the house show, payoffs are, they all have downsides and stuff. But yeah, they're also, losing a little bit, with the traveling, which I think with a lot of the talent, they're not complaining. Traveling sucks. And I think a lot of them are probably enjoying the break just from the rigorous road schedule and stuff. But yeah, just to do that, and especially in these times, that's a good thing to bring up too. It is a pandemic era right now, and everybody is struggling to make ends meet. And if there's one company that's not struggling to make ends meet, it's WWE. They're making ridiculous amounts of money, and they think that's okay to take away from this talent that has a window to make income. Yeah, they might be being compensated handsomely, but when you're a wrestler, unless you're a super duper top guy that can wrestle for 30 years like Chris Jericho, you got a small window. You got 10, 15 years to wrestle. Those are the years you need to make your money. And if you make enough of it, you never have to work again. But if you don't, you got to find something to do after wrestling. So, you should really strive to make as much money as you can while you're healthy enough and young enough to do this as a profession. And for WWE to take away from that, it's like taking pieces of your life away. Yeah, this company, they do not have my respect at all. I don't like them. They make me want to fucking barf. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here. I kind of had a 2-hour cap limit on my stream tonight because I got some stuff to do. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce out of here. I want to thank you guys for hanging out again this evening. I'm definitely going to be up here Saturday for the podcast. If I can get up prior to that, I will. You'll have me Saturday for sure. A week from tonight for Monday's Raw review. And then I've got a big TNA Bound for Glory review, retro review hitting the channel in the next several days as well. So I will try to provide you guys some more details and some finalization on dates on that in the next few days. So stay tuned. Thanks for hanging out tonight, and I will catch y'all in just a couple days. Be cool. Peace.